Welcome to Silicon Valley Asian Business Talk. This is Roger Chen from University of San Francisco. In this video program, we interview business leaders, entrepreneurs, and leading experts from San Francisco, Silicon Valley, Asia, and beyond. This program is sponsored by University of San Francisco Center for Business Studies and Innovation in Asia Pacific. This is Roger Chen from University of San Francisco and Center for Business Studies and Innovation in Asia Pacific. And we welcome you and also want to thank you for spending time talking to us. And I would like to maybe ask my colleague, Professor Keith Hunt, to briefly introduce himself. Then we start the interview.
Hi, Kashyap. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Keith Hunter. I'm an associate professor in humanistic management and hospitality. And my specialty tends to be in the leadership, teams, and organizational behavior kind of area. I'm delighted to meet you. Thanks for working with us today.
Got that. Oh, thanks for having me, Roger, Keith. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe Kashyap, so let's kind of start our interview by asking you to very briefly kind of introduce yourself, your very successful entrepreneurship journey, including your current company. Yeah, please.
Sure. I'm Kashyap Deorah. I'm the founder and CEO of HyperTrack. We make logistics APIs. The way we look at the business is Uber-like technology for the rest of the world.
So maybe can you share with the audience, what is the wisdom you like to share with the young people who want to start this journey, and what knowledge can or cannot be leveraged because your fourth startup can clearly demonstrate that. So would you please kind of share that, which is will be very, very interesting for many young audience.
Yeah. The interesting thing about the fourth journey was when I understood that I need to learn from the youngsters how the world has changed, rather than telling them. But I'll tell you more about how that played out. In the rules of the game, in what technologies you use, how you build software and applications, those keep changing a lot. The rules of the game in how you hire people, what do people look for? What's just hiring, retaining, inspiring a team building. There are a lot of things that change in there. The way we build companies, again, a lot of things that change. So on the surface, a lot of things change, and at the roots, it's still laws of physics, and some things remain the same. So one of the things that in startups, it's always talked about, it's product market fit. So you have a market representing users, customers who have a pain, and they solve it a certain way today. You solve it much better, and you solve it in a way that that is good, that is so much better that they will pay for it. Right? Either they will pay for it or somebody else will pay for that. And then you have a business. And when you find that you have a product that solves a market pain, which is large enough, then you have product market fit. So I had learned how to navigate that and figure out, if the product is strong, but the market is not, change the market. If the market is strong, but the product is not, change the product. So how do you find that fit is something I had figured out how to do. Now, in that whole process, my first three companies were all building applications, application software, a certain kind of software architecture, which had certain kind of dynamics. My fourth company was actually infrastructure software. It was a new kind of business. API businesses are only, less than 10 years old. So it's a new kind of business. And of course, first principles remain the same, but there were some special dynamics there. And I understood that this is infrastructure software. The product market fit was there. That part, I did not make a terrible mistake there. Of course, you can always make it better, but there was a huge technology risk. So as someone who's built 3 companies before and invested in so many, I thought technology risk, I have a great team of people, of course, and at this day and age, we can always figure out how to build the right technology. The harder part is product market fit, but turned out in this case that having a team that could build the technology for this was non-trivial. It was much harder than we gave it credit for. So we had multiple failed attempts of building out technology. The technology risk is what almost took the company down. And eventually, the third time that we attempted to build it, and each time it was, it's really, a product is really the team, it's the team that builds the product and stands behind it. So the first team built something that found product market fit, but the technology did not hold up to the scale. And then we were not able to re-architect it on the fly. A second team came up in a different city because there was enough money in the bank, but could not deliver a product. Just kept building it, but nothing got released after a while. The third team eventually, again, different city, different country, different set of people, tried to embrace the current one and build it up from there, but then eventually ended up building from scratch, and that worked, and that's what it took to get us back into the market with a working product.
Maybe, for a lot of people, they are very interested in your wisdom on, let's say, the product market fit, because you know a lot, and also about a human part of it.
Sure. Look, I think whenever you start, there are 2 things which are the least negotiable in some ways. It gives you an anchor to what you're doing, gives you a sense of purpose. Without that anchor, it can be, you can sway in very random ways, because the world is large, the market is large, the people have lots of different thoughts. So one is which market or what problem am I going after? Some sort of vision around, this is the problem I want to solve. So for example, it looks like, when HyperTrack started, I said, all these logistics developers, there's a lot of them. It's a growing number who are dealing with on-demand economy happening, gig work happening, and they need certain technologies that only a few companies in the world have, and maybe that technology can be democratized. But it looks like the future of commerce is going to be this way, and a lot of developers will need this technology to build that. And so that's one, right? So having some sort of, that's not your product, that's just a certain outlook. That's also not a market, right? I mean, it's not just one industry vertical or one geographical region or one.
Are you mainly talking about the trend, the future trend?
Yeah, you can. It's a point of view which that Peter Thiel in his book writes. What is that one secret that you hold to be true that most people will disagree with you on? It's sort of a contrarian opinion, or it's something that you see that you feel like not many people are seeing, that the world will be this way. Like if someone says, I'll give you another example, that I think this whole taxi cab industry is broken. You need an app through which you can solve mobility from going from point A to point B, right? Something like that. Like Uber is that. Or someone says, look, I think Gen Z doesn't want to get full-time jobs or job security. They care about flexibility. and leveraging their skill, and they want to live life on their own terms. So it's all going to be flexible work in every industry. It's sort of a point of view. The other anchor thing is you have certain values. You have certain values around how you want to build a company. And those values translate into culture. Those values translate into who are the first few people you work with, because your first few team members and co-founders, it's like a marriage. You need to have some common. Now, you don't need replicas of yourself. You don't need people who think exactly like you. But there are some values that bind you together. Examples: open communication, or customers first, or we're building it for developers, or some things like that, or we need diversity, or we want to build this in a bootstrapped way versus high momentum, high funded kind of way. So there's certain values you hold true. Or my sister runs an education business, so it's all about improving the outcomes for the children.
Okay.
And that is my non-negotiable when all things considered. When some of these, when Atlassian started, people will be working remotely from where they are, was a core part of the value system, and they will take their weekends off, where we will not send emails on the weekend to each other. We want to build a company, imagine, where there should be no weekend emails. It's I won't join Atlassian because I don't know how to operate that way, but they were very clear about that. So the vision and your values are two things which are the least negotiable. Everything else in between is you're building. It's clay. It's dynamic. It's impermanent. Everything's impermanent, but between of all things, these two, the vision and values, you need a strong anchor, the least negotiable, and then you sort of build on top. And in there, there's no linear path to getting to product market fit. It's you want to talk to users. For that, you need to first have a thesis on who the users are. Once you talk to them, you realize even when they're telling you something, it doesn't mean that they will actually use that. So that takes a while to figure out. So then you just don't talk to them. You have to show them something, and you have to see how they're using it. Watching their behavior is more valuable than talking to them. Or when you're talking to them, how do you listen deeper and listen for the question behind the question, or the message behind the message, so that you can solve it. And then once you solve it, will they pay for it? Do they have the ability to pay for it? How much will they pay for it? The amount they're willing to pay, it usually is an independent thing than how much it costs you to build it. So is it viable? That will they pay more than it'll cost you to build it at scale? There are just so many questions which I think they're hard to, you can list them all out, but it's hard to sequentialize or create. Then it becomes it's an art form where you just have to be aware of, you have to solve for all of these things. And there's lesser causality and higher correlations, but ultimately it does feel like, okay, now I've solved something where a bunch of people really want it and are willing to pay for it. And that's product market fit.
Very, very insightful. I really like, actually, although I teach this topic, product market fit, but actually I would say this is the first time I hear you highlight these two non-negotiable pieces, which is so powerful. I think that's very, very important. Thank you. Question is, because I assume you already reached you did actually reach the product market fit. Even in one of the interviews, you're talking about you hired a marketing VP. So in other words, actually a company is at the scaling or growth stage, which is a very important objective, grow the business, right? This is also a very, very big challenge for many, many entrepreneurs or companies, how to grow, scale up their business. Could you kind of share with our audience what are the, based upon your successful journey in the past as well, what are the typical challenges of scaling up the business, and also what are the solutions or wisdom in, scaling up the new venture business?
Sure. I think I'll just follow a simple advice that Mark Andreessen, who is often the Netscape founder and one of the partners of Andreessen Horowitz, he's often credited with the phrase product market fit that we use. And he's in the same blog that he introduced that phrase. He also mentioned that before product market fit, do everything to get to product market fit. And after product market fit, do everything to penetrate the market and grow and scale. So that's been a useful thing for me in the journey is, and it makes it sound very binary, which kind of is not, because in any product you'll have some part which is matured. There'll always be new things that are not yet mature. So think of those as parts of the product which have not yet found product market fit. But let's use the framework in a way where it's a continuum, although it sounds very binary. Once you get to a place where you've crafted something that users really want, are willing to pay for, and are adopting, there's a pull for it. After that point is, until then, as a founder and the founding team, usually product engineers, you're the ones doing the selling also, the marketing and the selling. And the temptation will be high to hire professional marketers and professional sellers. And the problem will be, you wouldn't know which well to dip into. You wouldn't know which marketer to get, because business has not really taken shape, because marketing to one set of user is different from marketing to another. Selling $1,000 product is very different from selling $1 million product. And in today's day and age, it's for the same product, it can be marketed very differently to different people at different price points. There's the good news is there's lots of options. The bad news is there's lots of options. So if you jump into your sales and marketing too soon, then so once you get to product market fit, then you'll have some sense of clarity around, okay, I think this is the kind of marketer I need. This is the kind of seller I need. In that also, a lot of people don't tell you at the time you do it, but in hindsight, it becomes more clear, and investors tell you after you've made a mistake. Your first salespeople or your first set of marketers will probably not work out. It's a little known secret in the industry that your first few executives and professional executives, going from generalist athletic founders to surgeons, specialist surgeons, many of the first bets, I've heard numbers like 1/3 of your executives or half of your exec team will end up being wrong hires. And of course, it's very, very hard to hire professional leaders. So I think that's one tip I can offer is don't, just figure out the right time to hire. Just around when you're feeling the pull of product market fit is the right time to hire. And then, don't take it too hard if it doesn't. Of course, stay committed to that. And it's very hard to codify when it's the right time to let go or when do you persist. But if you do have to get in a situation where you have to let go, don't be too hard upon yourselves or on them. It happens all the time. So yeah, but the goal is once you found product market fit, you just have to go deeper and deeper. And look, it also depends on how strong that market is, how strong that product is, how strong that product market fit is, and how far. Sometimes it's so magical that it'll take you straight to $1 billion, right? And that's the example you look at in the industry and go, oh, that's what I want to be like. And then, oh, what did they do at that stage? Or what did they do at what stage? But just remember, not every product flies that high. And most products that people write about are the ones that flew very high. So, you need to have your own sense of self-assurance and confidence that, okay, this flew this much, so this is the right time to now do that. And it usually, before product market fit, all the experimentation is very broad because you're still trying to get to it. After product market fit, all the experimentation is more deep. You found one niche, you don't want to distract from that, then but you'll realize how fractal like it is, because once you found that, you'll invariably found that the product and the market is much deeper than you initially thought it was, and there's enough room for experimentation on how you get to your customers, which channels or which additional adjacent product you add to it, but you're going deeper rather than broader.
I like your last point about the, the experiment kind of things, because before product market fit, you say it's more general, it's more about the product features, but after product market fit, it's more nuanced, like a holistic go-to-market strategy where there's so many pieces you don't know. I guess that's also the reason you say many early hires don't survive, because, this is a learning process, right?
Yeah. You want the specialist to come in with a playbook. Right? At the same time, the cognitive dissonance is that you're building a new category product, so there is no playbook. You're going first principles. So how do you marry first principles with a playbook? And when it clicks, and when it doesn't, it just feels like square peg round hole. So then you're like, well, that playbook works, but not here. So sorry. and I hired you as a surgeon. I can't convert you. I won't be doing justice to you by converting you to an athlete. If you're a specialist 100-meter sprinter, I can't just say, okay, now learn to run a marathon.
It's a very good point. Yeah, very good. Maybe relating to this, about my next question relating to, because I'm a strategy scholar, so competition innovation is a natural topic. So could you kind of just elaborate a little bit about, because I know every startup company typically started with a very risky innovation. They try to offer something very unique or haven't been seen in the market. So here's the question, actually, when you run your company, after you find, let's say, your first like a product market fit, you got your main business, main product. So what's your philosophy, more importantly, what's your practice in dealing with or continuously searching for so-called radical innovation? Radical innovation basically means very new products or very new features that could typically risky, but potentially has very high return. So what's your practice in dealing with that type of innovation versus conservative, incrementally improving your features, things like that? What's your kind of wisdom on that?
Sure. It's a very well articulated question, and I'm glad you qualified that as talking about the radically new innovation. I might use the word category creation companies, like new category companies, and especially as Asian entrepreneurs, we have the benefit of looking at established categories and adapting that to our local markets. Something that has worked in the US, let's do it in our local market. And you're sort of borrowing the product market fit. There's an established category and you are creating a regional category, or you're taking a piece of software which is an established category and you're doing it cheaper. You're doing a good enough thing at a significantly lower cost. And great successful businesses have been built that way, where you're harnessing the talent and manpower and that advantage and using that to really build a great world-class product at a much more different price point. But we're not talking about those. We're talking about the new category products. And sort of by definition, the new category products do not have a direct competition. There is no clear product alternative. So to borrow Michael Moore's product alternative and market alternative, what ends up happening is while you're navigating the product market fit journey, you end up getting really user obsessed. And in that journey, the big changes are, oh, I thought this was the user, but actually that is the user. Or I thought these were the users, but now I've realized that these two other stakeholders are also important for this product for it to win. Those are the nature of insights that you learn. And once you build it in a very user-centric way, there is such a blue ocean. There is no clear alternative because that's how users are engaging with you, because there's nothing out there that solves it. And you end up automatically focusing on the unsolved part and not on the solved part. But once you are getting to product market fit and beyond, you start in taking it mainstream, something emerges as competition, where the users say, oh, but I'm using that, or doesn't that solve the problem? Or how does it compare to that? Because larger companies in their buying process actually want a comparison point, or even consumers, if they're buying something expensive, then they want a comparison point, to justify their purchase. People find new things as risky. Customers find anything new as risky, and to reduce risk, they need a comparable. So I think that's when you are forced to start looking at competition. And there, I think the sort of biggest learning I've got from my advisors and mentors, and I found that to be very effective, is it's very easy to get distracted by competition. And the more you look at competition, there is an innate need to follow that and copy that, or to neutralize that. So either you're trying to one up or you're trying to neutralize. And in both cases, you end up following them. And that becomes a distraction, because that comes at the cost of building something that the users really want, right? That competition might not even have seen. So the way the simple way to put this is focus on the customers. Don't worry about the competition. If you're obsessed about the customer, they'll take you to the right place. You won't have to care about competition. A more nuanced way to say it is see the competition through your customer's eyes.
That's interesting.
So you focus on the customer, don't take your eye off the customer, and be aware of what the competitor means to your customer, so that you end up winning against that. But the eyes are always on the customer.
Yeah, that's a very interesting way. Even you look at the competition, you choose the lenses, which is your customers' lenses, to look at the competition. That's very insightful, right? Because you can look at the competition from different ways. But I think that's very, very interesting.
US, the culture difference in doing business. I drew this metaphor called the sequoia and the banyan tree.
Yeah, we watched that. That's a very fascinating way to kind of illustrate that.
Yeah. So, in India, you'll have group companies, trusted brand doing all these different businesses, and even startups who've made it in one thing diversify much quicker. In the US, you do one thing and go much deeper in it until much more massive scale, and the survival rate is much lower. And you branch out much later. So I think that's one difference to be aware of. And if you're in the soil in India as an entrepreneur, there'll be a tendency that will push you to make more banyan tree like things, right? But tech businesses, and especially venture funded businesses, need to be like sequoias, because it's about the power law. It's for you to deliver returns. You can't just survive, you have to thrive, and you have to make enough returns that your investors and their investors, they all make money, and people, your shareholders make money from their stock options and whatnot. So, you're sort of you need to focus on building out a more Sequoia-like business. The other dimension I can offer is, I think, especially Asian entrepreneurs of our generation have a deep sense of confidence, which my generation was missing. In our time, we were just very few building out of Asia, and we were always reminded about the gap in GDP per capita. Our economies were smaller than the West. When I started off as an entrepreneur, we were not in the top 10 countries in the world. That got us to a certain level of complex that, we are inferior, we're smaller, we have a lot to learn. And that's a time machine, right? We have to learn from there, and one day we'll get to that. The context in which our current generation of entrepreneurs has come up is very different. They do not see this as a time machine. They just see it as, it's sprouting this way. This is sprouting this way. It's different. And we are ahead in a few things, right? We are ahead in many things. There's a sense of confidence, and you see that in various ways. You see that in pop culture. You see that in sports that we play. You see that in haircuts that we wear. And I think what's behind it is a deep sense of confidence. And I think that's a big difference, which is leading to a huge growth in Asian entrepreneurship and innovation, where it's new innovation that Asian entrepreneurs are doing. And I think we've only just started in that. And in that sense, there is a lot to learn for older entrepreneurs like me, to learn that sense of confidence, because in that confidence, they are able to be themselves and bring out themselves fully expressive. So, and you see a little bit of yourself in them, right? Because you have the same roots. So you go, oh yeah, I should have done that. And I was apologetic about it or insecure about it, but these guys are showing how valuable that is. For example, frugality. In the US, the consumption culture is such that saving money or spending less is seen as a sign of weakness, or there's almost this sense of entitlement of, this is what it costs. This is what I need to pay, right? Whereas I've seen more international entrepreneurs, not just Asian, also, Europeans, be much more conservative about spending money and being financially responsible. I'm broad brushing, of course, but that's the trend I've seen compared to American entrepreneurs or those who've grown up in the US, right? And that's hugely beneficial. In the early days of entrepreneurship, it's so critical to be frugal and fiscally responsible. It gives you a huge strategic advantage. Now, that's something that we don't have to be insecure about anymore, right? We can be very confident and go, we're going to save money, and so what? This is not about cutting corners, or we know where to spend and where not to spend, right? And the other is also just adaptability, right? For a lot of Indians, us being immersive in other cultures and our diversity, or the multitudes that we deal with, we're far more adaptive and flexible. My generation thought flexibility is a sign of weakness. Humility is a sign of weakness. Whereas if you just spin it around, it's just about confidence. You go, hang on, my superpower is adaptability. My superpower is, in any situation, I will find a way to adapt or immerse myself in that. Is a huge superpower, right? So then you start deploying it more, and you're fully expressed, and that becomes I think that's a big part of why you see a lot of Indian CEOs of all the top tech companies in the US. I think that adaptability, that financial responsibility is dealing with chaos and uncertainty, not trying to force homogenization, being okay with the managed chaos is I think these are the underpinnings of why we are emerging as.
To the Asian community should do, or like even universities like us can do to mitigate those kind of myth or misunderstandings, from your as a business person's perspective,
Yeah. Good question. I mean, look, the obvious answers that show up right now are, as an institution, you have just access to such a wide ecosystem. You can bring in speakers, and you're probably already doing that, but virtually or in person. Just get more people. And I would especially look at people who others, in America might have a strong opinion about. Just get them in front and humanize them, get them to talk about their world and their openly about their politics and culture and how it is doing business there, or how it is starting a company there, or what are the startup problems you're solving in that country and whatnot. I don't, just humanize them. That's one thing that comes to mind, but I'll obviously this is just a reaction to the question right now.
I'm always interested in the challenges. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced in assembling the teams that you worked with? And what did you do to address some of those bigger challenges? I think that's something we could all learn a lot from.
Yeah, actually, just a background, Kashyap, just to remind, because I remember, if I interpret that correctly, I could be wrong. I think talking about the HyperTrack company, when you change your different version of the product, somehow you are dealing with that kind of a talent issues. So this is something, maybe relevant, right?
Absolutely relevant. And, Roger, we met at an event which was a tribute to Naren.
Yeah.
And, Naren actually helped me reconcile this question quite a bit, especially in context of HyperTrack, where, I had a great run as a leader where I would assemble teams, we would build something that would be successful. And during that cycle, even if it was not immediately successful, we would problem solve in a way where we would make it successful. We would, in some cases, sell the company, or in some cases, find a different market for what we'd built. And, there would be that gratification. And the gap between failure and success was a few months, right? It's when this failure and no out of it for several months or years is when the real question of when do you cut the cord, when do you persist, that shows up. And some of that happened at HyperTrack for the first time in my career, and it really made me doubt my leadership, and definitely there was room to grow there. And a couple of things Naren helped with, and he would say these pithy things that you think about it and you get to realize months later, that's what he meant, and it sticks to you, right? So he says it in a way that sticks to you, but you still don't completely get it, and then you realize. One of the things he said was to give people too much freedom is to not give them freedom at all. Like very Zen-like, like very interesting. And what I understood from that was the way I build teams is I hire people who are seeking freedom and autonomy, probably because that's how I am as well as an entrepreneur. And then I want to hold them accountable, saying, look, this is what I'm counting on you for. I'm making it clear that's what I'm counting on you for. And then do it your way, make it happen, because I'm fully trusting that you will make it happen. Now, if they're not able to make it happen, right, and they're failing themselves, they're failing me, they're failing the company. These are different ways people look at it, but really they're failing to deliver that promise. You need to set them up for success as a leader. You can't just say, okay, I gave you a break, I took a bet on you, and now you go make it happen, and keep reminding them that. Because if they are stuck, then you are stuck. And you've got to help them. And often that help means either, they need to leave, or it means you need to shift the responsibility to someone else, or bring someone who they can report to, or it means actually intervene and say, okay, let me get this for 1 quarter and I'll make this happen for you, and then get you unblocked. It can mean a whole bunch of things, but in some ways I was not doing any of that. I was saying, hey, remember, you've got to, listen, take your time, but you've got to figure this out. And they really were burning and imploding at the time because they could feel the pressure. Their way of handling pressure was different than mine, just, different phases of life, different contexts or whatever. So something that simple, but, it was that insightful. Let me just leave it at that, where, to give people too much freedom is to not give them any freedom at all. In a more practical sense, you could translate that to, you have to set up people for success, and it becomes your responsibility to make them successful, where they have to hit success themselves. And there are many ways to go do that, but that's the responsibility of the leader. And sometimes that means figuring out that they might not be the right people for the job. That's the extreme situation. Even when they want to make it work, you want to make it work. It is only the leader's job to figure out that that's not going to work out, right? And you treat people right, and especially in a climate like this, where we're seeing so many layoffs happen, where the leaders decide, I want to do these experiments, I want to explore this market, and investors want even faster growth. So I have enough money in the bank, what more growth can I do? And then you realize that growth is not going to happen, right? And the leader's world is always, you're operating on hunches because you're trying to predict the future. You will never know clearly, by definition, what the future is going to be.
Yeah.
So, but you have a sense of clarity, and that's why you're the leader. You have a sense of clarity of whether something will pan out or not, whether this person will succeed or not, or whether this line of business will succeed or not. And you have to make decisions based on that. And in doing that, treat people right, and do the right thing. And there was so much that came in with just that one sentence from Naren.